Good evening, guys. I seem to have locked myself out of the house. So this is a makeshift plan. In the light, my phone is standing on a vase to have a discussion with you guys with regards to minimum wage. So before I start my discussion, the minimum wage problem, which ties into human rights and that thing, I want you to also go and have a look at my Pay the People global basic income. I am very prone for that, but unfortunately the system is not allowing for that at the moment. Once robots become better and people have more time on their hands and more automation, then I suppose that would work very well. Okay, so in South Africa, and these stats only apply to South Africa. It's my home country. This is what I know, and I'm going to discuss the problem here for this country, but it applies everywhere around the world where there's a low working population. South Africa's got about 51 million people according to News 24 in 2013, and only 3.3 million people pay tax. Okay, so it's a fraction of the people. Then 65% of the total population is between 15 and 65. So that'll be the workforce, because a lot of people in South Africa don't finish school, so they start working, at age 16 or so. So the working force is 30 million. The people paying tax is 3.3 million. So that's just over 10% of the total working population of 31 million that pay tax. But the big problem comes in where 25% of our country sits without work. So of this 30 odd million people that's able to work, 25% of them don't work. And I just want you guys to understand how they get to this 25%. That is 25% of people actually looking for jobs. So they are applying to go and work and do something. It's not people that just sit around and do nothing and don't apply for a job. That's people that's actually looking for a job. They can't find a job. So 25% of 30 million is about 7.5. Sorry, this pen, I'm using what I have here because I locked myself out. 7.5 million people are sitting around. Now my question is, where do these people get food, and who feeds them, and how do they make a living? 7.5 million people. There's countries on this earth where the total population of the country is 7.5 million. So I just want to come to this little drawing that I made here, and this is all thought up very quickly, but let's say 100% of the country working is these three blocks. So that's 75%, with the other 25%, the 7.5 million left in this block. So this whole block is standing by itself. So out of this 75%, they have kids, and kids have kids, and so on and so forth, and family members, and so that's just what I'm trying to illustrate here. But out of this 75%, these people need to live off what's being created over here, okay? And I'm not talking about government grants and stuff like that. I'm just talking about this person is feeding this person this person is feeding this person is feeding this person, and so that's a family member that does have a job, and there's a family member over here that doesn't have a job, so this one is looking after that one, within the age gap, as I told you, between 16 or 15 and 65. So these people automatically have less money to look after these people, but 100% of what the country can provide work-wise is done by this amount of people over here. So because only 3.3 million people are paying taxes in South Africa, 60,000 rand a year, so that is, after that you start paying tax, and 60,000 rand a year is 5,000 rand a month salary. For those of you don't know how to do the calculation, it's just divided by 12. So that's 5,000 rand. The problem over here is, of the people working, this 100% workforce in this bracket, a small amount of them actually earn 5,000 rand, because if you look at domestic workers, there's a minimum wage, and the minimum wage in South Africa depends on where you live, which area. So for instance, a built-up city area, the minimum wage would be higher than a farm or rural area. So this is not minimum wage. That just if you get more than that per month, you start paying taxes. So typically, people working on farms as laborers maybe earn 1,800 rand a month, and if my numbers are a bit off there, it's just as an example. So if you're a bookkeeper or a tax specialist or something like that, it's just as an example. So there's a big gap between that and that. But imagine that 75% of these people over here, there are people in there that's earning that. So let's say it's a family of 4, just as an example, and only 3 of them of that family is actually working. The 4th person needs to get supported out of this 1,800 rand a month. If you convert this to dollars, it's actually pretty much of a joke. It's just over $100 a month. So 4 people living off that times 4. You can do your own calculations. I'm not going to do that now. Per month, and only 3 of them are working for this. So the issue I have with the whole minimum wage thing, and there's talks about one of the big South African mines actually laying off about 8,000 people now, and it's going to go into talks and whatever. I just want to include there that those mine workers usually earn more than that. So they fall into this 3.3 million category, because some of them earn 7, 8, 10,000 rand a month, whatever. There's very little people working for the mines that earn less than that, according to my understanding. So what I want to discuss and why I don't agree with the minimum wage thing is, on this illustration over here, there's 100% work that can be done by this country. So if you take 100% of work at 8 hours a day, that's obviously 8 hours for 100%. But if you can get that extra guy's time in there for less money, the amount of work that gets done, the percentage goes up. So if you can add another 8 hours over there, then in effect you get 200% of the work done. Now, this modern African society doesn't see it this way, and most of the world won't see it this way. But that's the way I see it. I see that if you've got 8 hours here, and that's 100%, you add 8 hours, you'll be able to get 200% of the work. Now, I know people are lazy, and if there's more people, a little bit less gets done and whatever. So just argument's sake, let's bring this down to 150% of the work that's done. The total is 16 hours in work wages, but the amount of time spent stays 8 hours for work done. So if you add up all the hours worked in a year for that extra person working, then you'll get more work achieved, 150%. So for instance, a farmer is planting, just as an analogy, maybe 4 hectares of fruits or tomatoes. Let's make it tomatoes. So he's only able to get one guy to help him out over here. So he's got 8 hours, and there's only 365 days in a year, so 200 and something that you can work. But now all of a sudden, if you take minimum wage away, then this guy can plant 50% more. As we said, it might be more, it might be less, but you get a little bit more done, less done if you've got more people. They aren't as efficient as less people, more management and so on. So the country's production, goes up, and if production goes up, your exports and so on, the profits go up. We're in a recession now. It's officially announced a week or two ago that South Africa is in a recession. So this guy, number 2, he didn't have a job at all, but now he's got a job. Now, the amount of money he earns, I'm going to go back to this page. Let's say it is the minimum of 1,800 Rand a month. Now, we know from over here, we're only going to get 150% and not 200% efficiency out of this. So just argument's sake, from a farmer's perspective, let's say he now pays guy number 1 1,000 Rand and guy number 2 1,000 Rand. I don't agree with this because it's very little. It's hard to live off that. I don't live, I live off a lot more than that. But it is a problem in this country, as you can see, with everything going on top here. So now this guy gets less money, but this guy gets 1,000% more than he did. Okay, so that also resolves a bit of the issue over here, because now this guy doesn't have to look after this guy. He's looking after himself. This guy's got less money. This guy's got more money. So together, they're making the same or more than they did, but the total productivity of the country goes up. Okay. Now people will say, "Oh, but that's inhumane and whatever." Because of this 25% of people that don't have jobs, I think this is a better solution for people sitting around. And if I go into the rural area sometime, I'll maybe make a video, and you guys can see how bad it is in South Africa for people just walking around. It looks like they have no purpose. Not that I'm saying they don't, but it just looks like that. So what happens over here is these two guys are now starting to compete for who's the best, because the next guy in the run, maybe the farm manager or whatever, the foreman, it gets 1,800 Rand a month. So he's still on his good salary. So these two guys start competing now. They either work harder or they get kicked. So he's either going up or down, whichever one is working harder and better. And if this 25% number comes down, people's skills will automatically improve. They'll feel a sense of purpose for actually doing something, because I believe that South Africa, a big problem here, one of the big problems is young kids are just hanging around doing nothing, and it doesn't give them a sense of purpose. So they go and steal, and they go and vandalize stuff, and those sorts of things, where this will definitely resolve some of that issue if we drop the minimum wage or cancel it altogether. Now, another reason why I'm saying that is we've got a lot of Zimbabweans and Mozambicans and stuff hanging around here, sitting on corners during the day waiting for work. If you go to that guy and you say, listen here, I'll give you $100 a day, he's got the choice to say, yes, I want it, or no, go to the next guy. If the minimum wage is not there, and I know people are misusing this thing where, these guys aren't registered and so on. So some of these guys do work for that amount of money. But if it's not there, then more people will have work. Domestic workers. So the guy actually earning the 60,000, 5,000 Rand a month or more, and this might be a little bit less, but say someone that earns 10,000 Rand a month, he can't go and substitute someone's salary that needs a salary for 1,800 Rand a month to come and work in his house. So this person has got a job in a mine, for instance, and he's out the whole day working. So he's got maybe a child or two children, one or two, whatever, children at home, and he maybe sends them to the creche, but it's only a half day, whatever the scenario might be around there. He can't afford that, but he can make a deal with someone if they're willing to work on their own discretion, yes or no. Look, I'll pay you $800 a month, just argument's sake. I'll give you 800 Rand a month. You look after my children. All they can do is say, no, that's too little, or yes, I'll do that. Because a big part of these people over here that are sitting at home, or maybe an older woman, or a younger child, or well, I'm saying a child, a teenager in their late teens. So this person needs to have the free choice. Listen here, am I willing to work for that or not? If they say no, move on to the next person. If they say yes, awesome. Then there's someone else contributing to this 100% and increasing the efficiency of the company. And I also believe that these labor, what are they called? These labor guys should be left out of this scenario, because people need to start thinking for themselves and making their own decisions. And these guys are taking, I'll get to the correct name now, sorry. They're taking a substantial part of this money that's also feeding part of these people to go and fight with mines and, companies and stuff that are already feeding these people under minimum wage, where a large part of the country doesn't have work. It just doesn't make sense. If you want to work, work. If you don't want to work, don't work. Sit at home, but don't steal other people's stuff and vandalize people's stuff. So I honestly and fervently believe that to solve one of South Africa's biggest problems is to cancel the minimum wage, let the people work, and let the system grow by itself. Invest in the people that are working. Don't invest in people that's sitting at home. I've recently been to Mauritius, and I don't know how many of you know where Mauritius is, but it's off the coast of Africa. It falls under Africa. But they pay 15% tax through the bank. If you earn 1,000 rupees a month, Mauritian rupees, they use rupees, you pay 15%. If you earn 100,000 rupees a month, you pay 15%. If you're a company, you pay 15%. And that seems fair for me, but I'm not going to go into this discussion now. But there's also, I spoke to some of the people there and I asked them, what the minimum wage is. And it seems like there is a minimum wage, but there's a sort of a no work, no pay policy where in this country, if you fall into this bracket, there's government grants and you can claim for up to 4 kids, if I understand it correctly, and you get, and a lot of people are living off their children allowance because they've got kids now, and every child gets, I'm not sure what the number is, but I think it's 400 Rand a month. So they have 4 kids just to get that money and sit at home and do nothing. So in effect, if this person has 4 kids, he's earning 1,600 Rand a month from the government for doing nothing, but the government wants the people to pay a minimum wage of 1,800 Rand, just as an example. So the government's paying this person less to do nothing, and they want us to pay them more, and they're not contributing, but exactly the contrary. These 3.3 million people that do pay taxes needs to subsidize this person for doing nothing, getting 1,600 Rand a month. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't make logic sense. I want more production on my farm, in my business, in government, in every sector of the country, more work done. Instead of 4 hectares, 6 hectares is planted, more people, more efficiency, more people in the workforce. The overall productivity of the country goes up, and the end result of that will be more work. Because if there's more money and more productivity, more things happen, more development, more roads, more infrastructure, more development on farms, more development in cities. People have money so they can buy houses. So developers build, and builders give work. But everything is going downhill now, and more people are falling into this bracket. What's going to happen with the recession? Will that number stay at 25%? Or will that increase? My assumption or idea is that that number is going to increase because of the recession. And what's going to happen then? Then this whole vicious cycle repeats itself, and down, less people have work, and famine and war and stuff like that are then on your doorstep. So let the people work for whatever they agree to working. Anyways, guys, I think this video is a bit long. I want to try and keep it short, but there's a general explanation why minimum wage should be taken away. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.